That summer, my father pulled the old bicycle from the shed and, under the stubborn sun, taught me to ride on the gravel lane behind our house. The bike was 2 sizes too big, its blue paint chipped to the colour of a well-loved seashell. The bell on the right handlebar tinny and brave. Dust hung in the light like pale powder, and the cicadas hummed their stubborn little prayers from the hedge where the lilacs forgot to die, even in heat. I stood on the pedals and imagined I was already a man of the road, which is a funny thing to believe when the road is only a few paces from the kitchen door and the world fits inside a wooden gate. The lesson began with the smallest of things, the squeak of the seat rising, and the way the pedals turned cold against my bare feet. My mother stood on the porch steps, knitting her voice into the air, saying nothing with her mouth, but everything with her eyes. Trust me, she seemed to tell me, and trust him, my father, who wore the patience of weather. He held the bike steady for a heartbeat more than seemed fair, then released the handlebars into my grasp, as if setting a ship to sea. I rode a wobbling line that first circle, as if the ground itself might tilt and swallow me whole. But the lane straightened a little with each uninterrupted breath I pretended to take. I remember the sound of air rushing through my ears, the slap of tire on gravel, the distant clack of a wooden fence post falling asleep in the shade. The world smelled of cut grass and warm tar and something sweeter I could not name. Honey from a biscuit left cooling on the sill, perhaps, or the sweetness of the day that never seemed to want to end. My hands were rough with new strength, and the handlebars bit into my palms when I gripped too hard. But I didn't cry, and I didn't laugh too loud, because somewhere in me there was a mirror reflecting a version of myself I hadn't met yet, and I was too shy to jolt the image loose. The first confident push came when my father stepped back and let gravity and me negotiate a treaty. The lane unrolled, narrow as a letter, and the lilac scent pressed in with the heat and made my head a little light. I steered with awkward grace, the bike wavering, my heart thudding in a drumbeat I didn't know I'd learned to trust. For a moment, the world seemed large enough to hold everything, the fear, the breath, the pride, like a room growing just big enough for you to stand in and call it home. Then the road asked much of me all at once. A stone small as a coin, deadly as a secret, blew up in the front wheel's wake, and sent me into a quick, ungraceful arc toward the ditch, where the grass wore the colour of tired green and a glint of water collected in the furrows. Pain came not as a shout, but as a whispered, undeniable thing. A scrape along the shin, a burn where the skin met the gravel, a sting of wind ripped from the lungs. I landed with a clumsy grace I would come to cherish later in life. The way a fall teaches you your limits, then nudges you to reframe them. My father was there in a blink, hands gentle on my back as he helped me to sit, to pull myself upright with the stubbornness of a stubborn dog. The bike lay there, as if exhausted from the ride we hadn't yet begun. He brushed dust from my knees and offered his own cold breath as a kind of medicine. A way a cold night spills through the window when you've forgotten to close it. My mother's voice came from the porch again, softer now, full of something like relief and common sense, that the best stories are not always about triumph. Sometimes they're about who you become after you're kept company by the ground. In the days that followed, I rode again and again, learning not to fear the wobble, but to ride through it. The lane widened in my mind, becoming a small horizon where courage wore a hat and walked beside me. I learned to listen to the bike's stubborn rattle, to trust the moment the front wheel would settle, to brace for the sudden joy of momentum when the legs remembered how to push and the breath found its rhythm with the road. The little falls became a map of my early self, each scrape a line on a growing coastline. I learned with time that the road does not reward the bold alone, but the patient, the quiet one, who keeps getting back up. That summer, I did not yet know what I would become, only that I would have to ride through whatever tomorrow brought, with hands that knew the feel of the handlebars, and feet that remembered how the pedals could hurt and heal at once. There were days when the lane stretched long and sun-drenched, days when I rode with the wind at my back and a laugh I did not yet know how to name curling from my lips. I learned to listen to the world, to the distant crack of a coal wagon somewhere beyond the hill, to the kitchen clock ticking away the hours, to the way a neighbour's dog announced a boundary of safety and a buddy's boyish shouts announced an invite. I learned to hold a moment in both hands, to bend toward the truth that you are never truly ready for what life asks of you, yet you answer anyway because you must. Looking back, some memories sink their roots into the soil of our days and stay there, quiet and unbothered, until the years turn such memories into weather we've learned to wear. For me, the weather grew kinder as I grew older, and the road remained a friend I could not outpace even when I pretended I could. The lessons of the gravel lane did not demand fame or recognition. They asked only that I keep moving with steadiness, that I honour the force of small beginnings, that I tend to the hurt without erasing it, that I learn to surrender vanity to the simple possibility of getting back on again. In the years since, I have stood at many crossings, in kitchens where broth steamed like pale fog, in rooms where the clock counted out the quiet of a life well loved, in the spaces between people who once rubbed elbows on a sunlit sidewalk, and strangers who, for a moment, reminded me what it means to be seen. I have watched the world turn gently toward colour and cold, watched neighbours come and go like tides, watched children grow into people who still search for the heartbeat of a summer that once carried them home. And still, when the wind loosens its hold on the day and a memory slips free, I hear the old bike's bell, that silver note that rang so small and then grew so large inside me, echoing down the long corridor of years. If there is a truth I've learned in my later ages, it is this: you do not need a grand event to measure a life. A small act, repeated with patient love, can become a guidepost when the horizon widens beyond what you can see. The summer bicycle taught me that life asks for balance, for the courage to try again after you fall, and for grace, an almost unnoticeable grace that arrives when you find yourself able to dust off the dust and begin again, with a softer laugh and a truer word on your lips. I am grateful for that stubborn blue bicycle, for the man who held it steady just long enough, for the woman who stood with quiet pride on the porch because she understood the value of small beginnings, for the road that refused to end where fear began. Time has moved us along, and I have learned that the road you ride is not always the road you travel. Yet the ride itself can teach you how to travel with gentler hands and a steadier heart. And so I carry that day within me, a soft map to guide the days ahead, a reminder that meaning is not a destination, but a way of moving through the world, with patience, grace and gratitude for every small push that keeps us upright, no matter how wobbly the first step may be.